Should we start, Mr. Skaggs?
Yeah,
I
that's
have
fine.
three, and I think people can they will join. They can join anytime.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Artika Toch. I'm Information Health Associate at East Brunswick Public Library. Welcome to Fun and Moving program. It is my honor to introduce today's presenter, Mr. Hiram Skaggs, who did amazing job in the field of health and wellness. Mr. Skaggs is the co-founder of the health and wellness company Fun and Moving. His passion and understanding of the importance of keeping the body moving stems from his own recovery and rehabilitation from an accident. Movement is good for health and wellness. Fun and moving techniques, creative way to move your body without hurting yourself while also increasing relaxation, helping with stability, and decreasing balance and fall risk. You will learn movement routines that never make you get on the floor and don't need special equipment. Mr. Skaggs' movement routines currently stream in 32 million households in the US and Canada and are Medicare certified. During presentation, you will be muted. If you have any questions, please feel free to write it down in a chat box window. Mr. Skaggs will try to address all the questions at the end of the presentation. Without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Skaggs to share his experience with us. Mr. Skaggs, over to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Well, I'm really excited to be here and talk to everybody about functional movement and what Fun and Moving is trying to do in the world. And I think to do that is really a great idea to explain kind of where we came from and how this started. The very beginning concept for Fun and Moving was basically we noticed that there's, fitness rates are getting lower and lower in the US, and people are having more and more chronic diseases that are afflicting people sooner and sooner at younger ages. And it's a real health crisis. It's not a shock to anybody to hear that our health system in the US is not functioning at the top level, that we have a lot of things to fix. And we wanted to see how we could kind of bridge the gap and help fill in where the rest of the system is missing people, where people are falling through the cracks. We didn't want to see that. So two of our founders got together, one in one side of the country and one on the other side of the country, and it was just during the pandemic, so in 2020. And they found each other online, and were able to reach out to each other, and both had this interesting dream of how can we use functional movement, things that the body is meant to do, and movements that your body does all the time, that again, the idea is based on physical therapy and the functional movement theory. So how can we get people to move their bodies in ways that won't end up leaving them injured? Again, not needing more and more surgeries that make it harder and harder to exercise, but actually take away those barriers. And so reaching out, across the divide, those two got together. One was a ACE certified trainer who studied at the Cooper Institute almost 20 years ago and has been helping people ever since. And on the other side, somebody that actually owns funeral homes. And it seems such an odd, kind of place to start. But again, he had seen time and time again how people were dying earlier than they should, and the sad thing that leaves all those families with their loved ones gone. He's seeing that year after year people are dying and having more issues because of the state of our healthcare system, and he really wanted to do something about it. And again, they got together and started this company called Fun and Moving, and sometimes we call it the fam. We say join the fam. It's a family affair. We try to make it as inclusive as humanly possible. And in doing that, one of the founders is actually my mom, Peggy Skaggs. She's the ACE certified trainer I was telling you about. When this first started, I thought, this is a great thing and this is wonderful. You guys go out there and change the world. But I didn't really think it was for me. One, who wants to work with their mom, right? And it was, I have a successful career. I've been doing sales consulting for years, and didn't really see any reason to be joining a startup like this. But they put a lot of programming out there, and we're starting to make some good headway on the design side, making a website and actually having content that has, all the high level vetting and oversight built into it that we kind of dreamed of, or they dreamed of. And I actually got hit by a car. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. That promise is nothing gory. But I'm going to share my screen real quick and show what I'm talking about. So make sure everybody can see this here. So this here is actually on my LinkedIn from a post I made not that long ago. This is the EMTs arriving at the scene after I was in a cycling accident and got hit by a car. I'm probably in shock here. I don't know why else I'd be smiling. You can see they cut up my pants there and everything. That's my poor bike, left in the road after it got run over. And I, dove out of the way and barely escaped truly getting run over. Instead, it just the bottom of my left leg at just below my knee. The bone was smooshed, is what the orthopedic surgeon said. That was the very technical jargon he used, right? But they had to basically rebuild pulverized bone about 2 inches of the top of my tibia on my left leg. And yeah, it was a long recovery. It wasn't immediate. I didn't, go from this smiling face on the side of the road to immediately well. And my orthopedic surgeon told me it wouldn't, it'd be months before I could put any weight on my leg. I'd have to be in a wheelchair, and that really wasn't able to do any kind of PT until that was fully done. But I also knew, one, my mom's a trainer, and I have a lot of people in my life that are in this kind of industry, and I knew I need to do something. If I don't move my body at all, I'd atrophy to the point where it'd be pretty difficult to get back. And even my orthopedic surgeon agreed, like, yeah, you got to do something. But wasn't clear to do, and rather wasn't approved by my insurance company. Not like my orthopedic surgeon was fine with me getting moving, but that I couldn't access physical therapy. So that was a huge shock. I thought for sure that I'd be a great candidate for that, but they said nothing for the first 2 months. So instead, I used Fun and Moving to go from this state where I'm stuck and can't do anything, and with a bike that thankfully is actually fixed and good now. But I was able to rehab with Fun and Moving using the routines we have, on our site that was made for everybody. At the time, I thought, oh, this is just for other people. This is for, this is a great thing for, family to do and friends to do and everybody else, but it wasn't for me. And I was shocked and, kind of had my whole world turned upside down, and realized how critical it really was, and how even I, with great health insurance and with a great situation, great paid job, all that stuff, still didn't get the help I needed, because again, the system just doesn't work the way it's meant to. It doesn't work the way you want it to. Even in the best case scenario, Fun and Moving filled the gap for me. And the way that and then now, I, after the accident rehabbing, I was like, sign me up, guys. I want to be part of the team. And, I have a great personal story and a huge connection to this. But I was able to, take this on as, my calling, and the thing that I want to help people change the world with. What we do that's so different, and you can see there's the rehab knee, a lot of what I was doing was in this section, seated where I couldn't yet put weight on it. So, not right away. But before I could do these routines, I was able to do routines from bed, which we have a whole section that shows how to do just routines from bed when you can't put any weight on it yet, which is really great. You can kind of see down here, there's a whole section of lying down, seated, and even once you're able to put weight, bed to standing, with intensity levels that you can actually choose within that. But again, to back up, the reason that we were able to do that was because everything that we do, we aim at first the most vulnerable populations, the people that are most ill, most injured, right out of surgery, and least able. And then we can just go up from there. If somebody wants to do yoga, that's great. But if they have a balance and fall issue, you don't want to put them on the floor. That's not going to help. They're going to have, potential issue trying to stand up or, falling over on the way down. One of the reasons you see this person here, her name's Kiri, by the way, she's a great lady. She's doing yoga in the chair here so that people can do yoga from a chair. We can do dance from a chair, total body, Pilates, Tai Chi, our balance and fall prevention. The idea there being to take out any kind of barrier that you might have to being able to access these programs. If you can't stand, that's fine. You can do yoga from a chair without putting weight on your leg. If you want to do a little bit more than that, you can select to do a little bit more. And we call it ready for more. So that's pretty easy. You notice there's some chair, there's some standing, there's some things in between, all the way up to heart pumping. And again, still yoga at a high intensity level, but low impact that we're never getting on the floor. Just so that we can make sure that no one's going to have an issue, have a balance and fall problem, if they can't get on the floor and get back up safely, that's not going to even be an issue for them. And they're still able to do exercise, move their bodies in ways that are going to keep them healthy and get their heart rate up. That's really, really important. So the kind of idea there, I said a lot of stuff about high impacts, low impact, high intensity, low intensity, to kind of explain that a little bit, so that kind of illustrate what I'm talking about and not just speaking gibberish. So high impact exercises are things that, if you're jumping around, jarring the joints, these aren't bad things to do. They're fine things to do. There's things you have to do in moderation. Running, CrossFit, calisthenics, jumping rope, racquetball or tennis, hiking. There's a reason that you don't see in large numbers the majority of people at the end of their life doing these things. It's because they hurt over time. They're a thing that you can wear out your joints doing. Low impact exercises are things that are much less likely to do that. Don't get me wrong, you do a repetitive motion enough times in a specific way, you can still end up with specific injuries, but swimming, walking, cycling, yoga, as we mentioned earlier, spinning, Pilates, these things are low impact. Everything that we do is low impact. We don't do any high impact exercise. We're not going to have you jump and rope. We're not going to have somebody, jumping up and down, doing jumping jacks or burpees or, those types of calisthenics. But what we will do is have higher intensity. Just like you saw on the site just a minute ago, you say you want to do a total body exercise. You can get into the heart pumping area here and say, that's our high intensity level. You do things that are going to get your heart rate up. What you're not going to do is jump up and down or jar your joints. We're using, again, functional movement techniques, using physical therapy and occupational therapy practices to make sure that you're not going to hurt yourself. There's enough things in this world that are stopping people from exercising. We don't want one more thing to get in the way between somebody moving their body and being sedentary, because we know being sedentary leads to a lot of really preventable diseases. Just to kind of illustrate that a little bit, right now, the 7 most costly diseases in the US, and everyone agrees, heart disease and stroke, diabetes, Alzheimer's, arthritis, alcohol, cancer, and obesity. Now, again, we can't solve everything. We can't solve every problem. We're not curing cancer. We're not, curing addiction or alcoholism. But again, every single one of these areas, all 7 of these, are significantly impacted when you exercise, when you do aerobic activity, and when you move your body. There isn't anybody that's going to say you shouldn't exercise or that exercise isn't good for people. Obviously, all these experts agree 150 minutes of cardio a week, anything from the American Heart Association to the Mayo Clinic, the Cooper Institute, and even the National Health Service in the UK. So this is an international thing, the World Health Organization. Everybody knows we need to get a certain amount of our heart pumping every week, or you're going to have, at least some level of exposure to, these diseases, these 7 most chronic and expensive diseases for healthcare payers, for individuals. This is for employers. This is for our government. I mean, across the board, these things are killing Americans at extremely high rates. 363 billion. All of these are over 140 billion dollars per year that it's costing. Not to mention the people that are dying. Again, all this stuff is really heavily researched. It's not what is the word for it? It's not a surprise to anybody that moving your body is something that helps long-term health. We all know this. Again, the literature on this, like what cardiovascular effects and how it benefits, with heart disease, and exercise helps with your cardiovascular health, with diabetes, with arthritis, with cancer, all of this, Alzheimer's, all of this is extremely extensive research that shows all of the studies out there that exist, at least, the most recent ones from 2022 and 2023. Again, this takes us to the latest data from the CDC. This is all extremely highly well researched. This isn't a surprise to anybody, but we still have a problem. So how do you go from, we know we have an epidemic, we know we have something that's affecting health across the board in incredibly negative ways. How do you go from that to a solution? What we decided was right off the bat, we don't think that we can fix everything, but we can fill the gap in one specific area. And again, that's functional movement. And that's taking every single barrier out of whatever's getting between somebody who might move their body or might decide not to. And that was our passion. That was the whole point of this whole project, was what can we do to remove every last barrier? So the first thing we did, we started this during a pandemic, we made it virtual. We made it something that you could do on demand anywhere. As long as you had, connection to the internet, you could view these videos, which we have over 1,100 now and 420 content hours, a truly almost preposterous amount of content at this point, in really highly vetted ways. So everything is certified by, or everything's made by ACE certified trainers. ACE is the, top in the US. The NCAA uses ACE certification for their trainers. That's the level that they use. So we decided that's what we would use. In the past, the Cooper Institute was somebody who did that. ACE is now the top in the US. So again, everything's ACE certified, made by ACE certified trainers, and everything's vetted by a doctor, a physical therapist, and an occupational therapist to make sure, again, what we're doing will help you, not hurt you. And to make sure that this is something that's going to help people get well rather than get injured. Which again, when you talk about high intensity and high impact, a lot of times, especially with the high impact, people are going to CrossFit and getting injured. And that's not about a branding thing. It's just about doing high impact exercises are things that are causing people to get injured. We're seeing more and more injuries at even younger ages too. People in high school and in their local gym getting injured because of, lifting weights incorrectly, doing any number of things that are, again, high impact and sometimes quite dangerous, when you could be doing something else, when you could be doing something that's based on functional movement, the way your body's meant to move, and that is not so potentially dangerous for you. Along with that, so again, we made sure it was made by ACE certified trainers. We've got the information from the CDC and extremely extensive research to make this platform. One of the things we also wanted to do, again, the Cooper Institute was involved. Also, the Sport England is one of our partners too, so that's really great. We really wanted to make sure that everything was accessible. Things that are barriers to accessibility that we see in this industry right now are anything that you have to buy, anything that you have to wear, or anywhere you have to go to access these programs. Gyms are great. And exercise bands, resistance bands are great. This equipment isn't exactly a problem. It's a really great thing for people to have. But anytime you're asking somebody to do one more thing before they start moving their bodies, you're almost guaranteeing that a certain portion of the population just isn't going to do it, either because they don't have the ability to, they don't have the funds to, or because they just don't want to. So making those barriers go away was really important to us. We said, who cares about the bands? Who cares about the special weight systems? Who cares about the Bowflex? We're not worried about any of that. We just want people to move their bodies, and we want to be able to pipe it into their homes. That's why we're in, 32 million. We have contracts to be in 42 million before the end of the year. In US and Canada, we're, able to reach more and more people because I don't have to run a class at every single, library system, at every single Parks and Rec department. This is truly an international endeavor that we're able to, wherever people are, they can access these videos. It's not exactly a revolutionary concept that people could, have stuff on demand, But having this level of vetting and removing this many barriers and having, again, something based on this much research is just really unusual. The majority of the fitness industry right now is aimed at the most fit individuals. That's just the way it is. It's the way it's been for a long time. It's easier to market to people who are the most able. And most people are fighting for, 80+% of the industry is fighting for something like 14% of the population. We know that no more than about 14 to maybe, if you're being really generous, 30% of the population is actually exercising regularly and in the gym often. That's just not a thing that actually is happening. When it comes to wellness programs in companies, maybe 14%, 15% are actually adopting these wellness programs that people offer, as part of their health plan to help, stimulate health within their companies. One of the reasons that's happening is because the most fit people are usually the people that are accessing that. The people that actually need this, usually the least, that need help the least. And obviously nobody's going to necessarily raise their hand and say, it's me, I am the one who needs help. But if you make it simple for people to access these programs, if you make it easy for people to have the ability to self-select and say, you know what, I don't like dance, but I sure do love Pilates, but I haven't done Tai Chi in a while. Let's try that. And I don't have to get out of the chair, or I'd like to get up and, be standing the whole time, or I want something in between, to say, I want to do some meditation, or I really want to challenge myself today, or let's do something where I literally never get out of the bed. All of these, being able to choose what people want. Again, people are very familiar with the streaming and kind of how that works with Netflix and Hulu and with Disney Plus, all of those different platforms that are out there. So what we decided to do again was, let's pipe this directly into people's houses. Let's get it on smart TVs. Let's get apps for Android and Apple, which we have. Let's make sure people have access to this on Roku, Amazon Fire, Google TV, Apple TV, Samsung, LG. All we went every single place where people are accessing that, and made sure that we had an app on that platform and that we were available in those areas. Again, just so that people could remove all those barriers to access. Really, really super important to us that we made it easy, we made it accessible, and people could select how difficult they wanted to do. Again, you can always up the intensity. Upping the impact has adverse effects for a large percentage of the population. So really, really excited to have that opportunity. Again, we have workplace as well, which is not something that originally occurred to us when we first started, but we started having, wellness programs and workplaces reach out and raise their hand and say, hey, look, we have a sedentary population of office workers, or we have a group of construction workers that they do a lot of work and then they have to sit and they don't move around for a while. And then they have to go do something really, really difficult, or they just sit and get carpal tunnel and have shoulder issues and have neck issues. What can you do to help with that? So we made more content to help and focus in those areas too, because everybody's leaning over their phone, their neck is down, they're having back problems, they're at a keyboard typing all the time. These are really common problems, and we said, well, let's make sure to help with that. In the same way, we said, more and more people are having knee replacements, hip replacements, having neck issues. We even have stuff for neck fusion surgery for somebody who had, because that's becoming more and more common for people to have their neck, their vertebrae fused after having an injury. Back pain is really, really problematic in this country and happens quite a bit. Another thing along with that, and this is just so interesting, this is kind of telling you what we want to do overall in life. And I know this is a really bizarre picture to start with, but Rajio Taiso is a thing that's really common in Japan. It's just a cultural movement, and everyone said for a long time that it's just one of those unique Japanese things that can't be duplicated other places. If anybody's ever seen the movie Gung Ho, it's about a Japanese company that takes over an auto manufacturer that takes over an American auto manufacturer and tries to immediately implement Rajio Taiso, these routines that office workers do, and literally everybody in the culture do. Daily, weekly, depending on the person, how it's adopted, but that it's an often thing that's done. The origins of this are really surprising. So again, this is a BBC article talking about it, but you see this picture from, I believe this was in the 40s when this came out. So this is actually a Japanese postal worker and a group of children in the community around them. The Japanese post office had an issue in the 1920s where they couldn't underwrite life insurance policies for their workers. It was a real problem. You know, if somebody got hurt on the job and died and their family was left without anything, they weren't able to even write insurance policies for this because life expectancy was so low. They had tuberculosis epidemic. They were industrializing quickly. There was a lot of issues with that. So they actually came to the US in the 1920s, went to the Metropolitan Life Company in New York and said, what can you do? What can you give us to help us have, you know, longer lives and be able to underwrite life insurance policies for our people? And they sent them home with a calisthenic routine. Again, this is just a way to move their body without getting on the floor and to put on the radio. So it was a program that had already gone in 6 cities in the US, and we had better programming at the time. So it was more interesting things on the radio. We ended up canceling those exercise programs for something much more fun, I'm sure. While Japan has, for the last 100+ years, implemented this, you know, throughout their culture, starting at the post office and then playing it over speakers throughout the community. And now it's, you know, again, part of everybody's everyday routine. In that 100 years, they've become the longest lived country in the world. That's with a world war in the middle of that. So that's not something to you know, laugh at and say, well, they were modernizing, they hadn't modernized yet. Yes, but they also lost millions of people in a world war. So the fact that they've managed to sustain that over time, one of the biggest differences from that day to today is that everyone in their culture moves their bodies. And everyone moves their bodies in a way that's known to be good generally for your body. That's something that we want to see here in the US. We want to see, you know, everybody being able to have access and everybody being able to move their body. Do I think people are going to necessarily do it in big groups all together like the Macarena? Probably not. That's probably not going to be what we see happen, though that would be wonderful. We are culturally different than Japanese culture, and that's okay. We're much more individual, you know, place in society. And that's all right. It's why we have the ability to do these routines in the privacy of your own home or in a group. We have right now, we have folks in New York, in San Antonio, and in Kentucky, and in California, several different places that are using this in their parks and rec departments and having groups do it as well as having individuals do it. We have companies that are using it. We have streaming providers that are starting to stream these routines too, to help more and more people have access to just, you know, again, what we want to start is a revolution, and we want people to be able to move their bodies in ways that will keep them healthy longer and bridge the gap in what is offered in the healthcare system currently to what we could potentially see as our future. I would love 100 years from now it to be the case that we're the longest lived nation in the world because we finally figured out how to get our bodies moving, and how we finally figured out, you know, the program that we started 100+ years ago is implementable here, but in a way that's culturally palatable to us now, right? Not in a way that we make a bunch of people do something, but the people can choose what it is that they want to do in the way that they want to be helped. So that's the vision. That's the great task that we have at hand, and what we really believe we're going to accomplish. Like I said, we're already on track to be in 42 million homes in the US and Canada this year. We have some things going on in the UK and internationally. So we're really excited to see more and more happen, and we really want to change the world and make it a safer place for people to move their bodies and get some exercise. At this point, I'd be happy to take some questions, talk about it. I know I've been talking a lot. I'd love to open it up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Skaggs. Let's see if we have any questions.
And it's okay if nobody does, but you know, it's interesting if we do. I can stop the share as well. Is it possible to unmute everybody? Or just allow people to be unmuted if they, you know, somebody just wants to talk? I know the chat can be hard to navigate sometimes.
Yeah, it's a one way. The program is like that. So let me.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
Yeah, allow to talk. Uh, okay, you know what? If you have any questions, you can raise your hand so I can allow them. Looks like.
No, that's fine. That's fine if you don't have any,
Okay.
like, again, it's a lot of information and a lot to digest. So no worries there. Just wanted to make sure if anybody had just a burning question, they had the ability to ask one before the time is up. Any further questions from you?
From me.
Yeah, sure.
No, I found it very informative session. So I'm sure I think all of us will get a lot of health benefit out of it. It's like
Yeah,
good to know like some I feel that some of things like we don't know. So it's good to know new things.
absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your time, Mr. Skaggs. So
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. I think we don't have any questions. So
Excellent.
yeah, you are good.
Yeah, no, I'm great. I said everything I always meant to. And if anybody needs anything, obviously, I don't know if there's a method to contact, or if somebody has a question, you can always forward them my way. I'd be more than happy to help out if anybody ever does.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Skaggs. And I think we are good. This
Awesome.
session. Yep. Yeah. So then, folks, if you have any health related questions, please feel free to reach out to our health consumer health.
I do actually see a question popping up in the chat,
Oh,
and I want
okay.
to let you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It is.
yes, there is a membership fee. It was asked, is there a membership fee? It's $10 per household per month. It's really inexpensive. If we could make it free, we would, just to have everybody be able to access it. We made it as inexpensive as humanly possible to make as many people able to access it as possible. Also, we're working with employers and workplaces and insurance companies so that they can fund it and make it free to users at the end, or even more subsidized. But currently, it's $10 per month. And if you do have a health insurance, for a lot of them, you can use it and reimburse based on your activity, just like you would a gym membership. So again, the idea, we want to make it as free as humanly possible. It's unlimited how many people in the household can participate. There's no limitations on that. No number of users is too many. So if you've got a household of 12, that's fine. You can do it for $10 per household per month. We totally understand, and we also recognize, like with other streaming platforms out there, there's going to be some amount of, maybe it's not a person who's technically in your household. We're not holding it to anybody. If we see 100 users on one account, we might ask questions, but until then, it really is pretty wide open for the meantime. We recognize that's part of the process, and again, we want it in as many hands as possible, so that's okay.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Skaggs. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And have a good evening. If you have any questions, please, you can let us know anytime. And if you need that fun and moving further information, we can also provide that. Right?
Perfect. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I really appreciate having us here, and it was a wonderful time.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Likewise.